Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share a part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome once more. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. Through the gifts of technology, we also gather virtually to celebrate community and connections as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Welcome to all those who are joining us in this way today. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love.
Arise, O souls, arise.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? What's everybody doing later this afternoon? My name is Scott Hensey, and I'm a proud member of All Souls, and I want to welcome all of you here today on this, what turned out to be a beautiful, sunny Sunday morning. Some of you may be new here or wandered in to check us out. We want you to feel comfortable here and ask questions and get to know us. Would any members of All Souls who would love for a newcomer to talk with them, please hold your hand up for a minute? Wow, I love it. Please look around. If there's anybody close to you, feel free to ask anybody. They'll be happy to explain what we're about here at All Souls, and thank you for joining us. Your presence, each of you, enriches all of us and our time here together. Bring your whole self, your truth of happiness and sadness and fear, your hopes, your worries, your curiosity, and the tenderness of your heart. Who you are right now is just who you need to be. The moment we've all been waiting for, we've picked the date for our annual auction, Saturday, April 6th. Go ahead and mark it on your calendars. It has been set for our annual auction. The success of this auction is donated items and you. Services such as handy person services, lawn mowing, donated art, babysitting are very important components to this auction. So are seats at dinners or events. If you plan to host a dinner or event, keep in mind that through June 3rd, Saturdays are used by the Dinner for 8 program. Begin planning now for your contribution to a successful 2024 auction.
Come in rejoicing, if joy is on your heart. Bring your praise and sense of wonder. Fill this place with all your gladness at life's sweetness, at sweet surprise. Come in grieving if loss is in your bones. Bring your anger and your struggle, your deep disorientation, and your longing for what no longer remains, your longing for what has never been. Come in confessing if regret burdens your soul. Bring yourself and all your humanity, your imperfections and your short-sightedness, your impatience and your struggle to be here in this moment as it is. Come in with all of yourself, just as you are. For here is a place for the living, a place for real life. This momentary, mundane, miraculous mess. Here is a place for the remembering, all of it. All of ourselves and the ways we remain connected in this common course, held in love that through it all calls us on. Come, let us worship together.
Here today, in this place, with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know. And may we know so that we can change ourselves in this world. May this chalice we light our way. Please stand as you are able and join in the affirmation of our covenant, and then remain standing as we join together in song. Together we affirm, goodwill is the spirit of this church. Service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Well, this is the story for all ages. So I would like to invite you, of all ages, to participate in telling the first part of the story. And your role is simply to, when I gesture toward you, to shout or say or whisper the word joy. Just joy. And if you want to stand, you want to dance a little, you want to hunker down, anything you want to do or not, it's up to you. Joy when I gesture, okay? All right. UU minister Bill Clark tells a story about being at the beach after a long, hard day. For the past many months, his ministry had been particularly difficult. He was exhausted and sad and wondering how he could possibly go on. Then across what he thought was an empty beach, Bill heard something, a woman shouting. But it quickly became clear that she wasn't in trouble. In fact, what she was shouting over and over again was joy. Great. All of a sudden, something shifted in Bill's heart, almost a revelation. It was possible to choose joy, even in the midst of great difficulty. It was possible to be so connected to joy, so overwhelmed by joy, that you would need to shout it to the very wind and waves. Touched as he was by the stranger's declaration of joy, Bill decided to join in. Joy. He called to the woman. Joy. He called to the seagulls. Joy. He called to the sand and the sea. Joy. And each time he called out, he felt his heart lifting. Each time he called out, he felt more connected with the stranger, and through her, to the whole world of people trying to find their own joy. And then a damp and sandy golden retriever came running from behind a sand dune and dashed up to the woman. Joy! There you are, she said. Time to go home. And with that, the woman leashed up her dog, Joy, and headed off. There are lots of reasons why I love this story, and not just because there's a dog in it. Although it's about a kind of mistaken identity, I think it really has a lot to say about finding joy. For one thing, joy doesn't always come when it's called. There are lots of reasons that make us feel as if joy has fled the scene. Illness, injury, lost friendships or loved ones, boring work, teachers or bosses who don't understand or appreciate us. The list of things that can rob us of joy is pretty much endless. And when we've lost our sense of joy, it doesn't necessarily come rushing back the instant we notice it's gone. And it certainly doesn't help for other people to tell us to smile, or that we should just get over whatever's bothering us. You can't be bullied or talked into feeling joy, and sometimes it just doesn't respond when you call. But maybe calling makes a difference. Believing that joy is out there, knowing that you want to walk together, finding a way to let joy know that you are available might just eventually work. Maybe not by hollering joy at random strangers, but by remembering and turning toward the things that have given you joy in the past. For me, a list of joy makers would include dancing and singing along with my ukulele, and going for a walk, and reading a good book, and talking with friends, and eating chocolate. I mean, joy doesn't always come when you call, but it comes sooner if you let it know where to find you. I can't guarantee that any of these suggestions will lead you straight to joy. There are times you might very well feel as if joy has run off entirely and moved in with someone else. But generally speaking, if you are willing to call to joy long enough, eventually it will show up, wet and sandy, tongue hanging at the side of its mouth, ready to romp with you all the way home.
Please join us in song as we send our youth to their classes.
Go now in peace, may love guide all your ways. Beauty be the blessings of your nights and days. Truth on your lips and kindness in your deeds. Faith to follow where the human spirit leads.
Good morning again. A little update. We had a partial burner failure about 10 days ago. We have only one point of combustion in our system. We spread heat through water from there. And if that combustion point stutters at all, there are limiters that just shut the whole thing down, and that's what happened. Right now, we're back at about 60% burner capacity. We're holding 70 degrees reliably. I would dress warmly anyway. We expect this week to finish the work. We've had crews in the past week, and hopefully by Thursday or Friday of this week, we'll be back to normal. But it's going to be a bulge in the budget. It's dug deeply into what we call our maintenance reserve, and it's something we'll have to take care of. But we always do that. It's part of what we do here. It's a good reminder, though, I think that this is where the energy that we have for each other, the energy that we give to our community, the energy of other organizations that we support, this is where it all begins. And in a very real sense, it's what we can do, and it's all that many of us can do. We give our time and our treasure. I'd like you to consider, if you would, that when this basket comes around and you hold it for a moment in your hands, a point like this should remind us that what you're holding in your hands is our church, and that you treat the basket accordingly, and that you see at time of pledging, and each Sunday, you see that act. Of course, it's an act of generosity, but it's also an act of gratitude. It's taking care of our inheritance, and it's assuring that we can continue to do what it is we love to do, and to that extent, it is also an act of joy. The offering will be both given and received in gratitude, and today with a little extra appreciation. Thank you.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This strength that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This strength that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This strength that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This pride that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This pride that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This pride that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away.
Please join me in the dedication of the offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission and the congregation to build a faithful care to unity and to inspire personal and spiritual growth and to create change towards a just and compassionate society.
The first reading is by Ori Hassan Wiesberg, a fellow who is an author, an activist, a former Israeli soldier, and a father who lives in Jerusalem. I'm thinking about joy, which is a bit preserved. Yes, more than a bit perverse. I'm more thinking about joy, more than just that, I'm seeking it. I weep often these days, real tears, more perhaps than at any time in my life. But I'm not depressed, I'm sad. How can I seek joy when I am surrounded by death? And not by death from disease or old age, but from savage human folly. It feels obscene to rejoice when so many people I know are grieving for close friends and family members, when so many people are dying in Gaza. It's unseemly, disrespectful. I certainly don't want to numb myself as an escape. The moment requires grief and outrage and compassion. To lose that would entail a loss that might lead to a muting of humanity. So the challenge is to figure out how to function in this horrific and likely extended normal without becoming numb to the horrors. Joy, at least of a certain sort, might offer an answer, because joy can be resistance when it's not escapist. So the challenge is to figure out how to function in this horrific and likely extended normal without becoming numb to the horrors. Joy, at least of a certain sort, might be an answer, because joy can be resistance. It can be resistance when it's not escapist, when it's not the joy of the lotus eaters who, as Tennyson put it, says, no joy but calm. I don't want to be calm, at least not completely and constantly calm. Rather, I'm talking about joy with consciousness of the thing it is resisting, joy with consciousness of the stupid carnage and suffering, joy that doesn't exclude outrage and grief, but that facilitates them. The abolitionist and feminist hero who escaped those who enslaved her, to become an activist, orator, and writer named Sojourner Truth, said this: I will not allow the light of my life to be determined by the darkness around me. Nourishing the light of one's life requires joy.
This reading from UU Minister Erica Hewitt concerns a tweet heard round the internet. On August 29th, 2018, one Roger Cooper tweeted plaintively, "Could we, without relentlessly criticizing, just let people have their pumpkin spice, their avocado toast, their fandoms, their Dungeons and Dragons, their up too early Halloween decorations, and whatever little harmless things in which they've managed to find a tiny shriveled flower of joy?" Well, in a flash, more than 332,400 people liked this tweet. I did. I am all in favor of allowing people their tiny shriveled flower of joy, or what I imagine as the small hearth fires we each build to keep our spirits warm in this cold, cruel world. And surprise, it also didn't take long for the Twitterverse to pile on Mr. Cooper, not for his message, but for spelling avocado wrong. In response, he patiently thanked his critics for, quote unquote, helping me to know that I've made a mistake. Mr. Cooper graciously declined to point out the irony of being subjected to the very type of relentless criticism he was pleading for a moratorium on. His follow-up tweet was a little more direct. We're all just trying to survive here. Who among us doesn't know that critique, criticism, and assessment have become norms of our culture today? And I'm not talking about affectionate teasing between friends. I mean withering comments and performative boredom looking for an audience. Oh, is sports ball happening? Tweets someone who knows full well their friends and family are thrilled by the World Series nail-biter. Or, ugh, you cannot possibly be listening to Christmas music yet, moans another critic, as some of us are already weighing how soon is soon enough to put out our light-up Christmas llamas. Yes, you heard correctly, Christmas llamas. I have two, Biff and Nestor. It makes us feel powerful, I suppose, to be in the judge's seat, and some of us were just hardwired to be the outlier, ever the naysayer. But boy, there are days when the culture of knee-jerk critique makes me sad. I notice lately that I hold my own small, harmless pleasures close, lest an online friend I care about spit into the small hearth fire I've tended as a reliable source of warmth for my spirit. So, I'm trying to practice aggressive non-judgment about how you, me, all of us choose to warm ourselves. Who cares if your harmless pleasure bores me or disinterests me? We're all imperfect. The world can be such a barbed place these days. But we're also merciful, or we can be. We can be each other's cheerleaders for simple joys, even if we don't share them, and compassionate about the fact that we're all just trying to survive. So here's our prayer. Love who holds us all. On some days, this earthly existence is hard. Thank you for our capacity to be comforted, dazzled, and delighted by harmless and small joys. And please, help us keep faith with the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not yuck someone else's yum.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog, was a good friend of mine. Never understood a single word he said, but I helped him drink his wine. Yes, he always had some mighty fine wine, singing joy to the world. All the boys and girls, joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea, joy to you and me, joy to the world. All the boys and girls, joy to the world, joy to you and me, joy to the world. All the boys and girls now, joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea, joy to you and me, joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea, joy to you and me.
I sometimes forget that I was created for joy. These words are attributed to the 14th century Persian poet Hafiz, who went on to say, "My mind is too busy, my heart is too heavy for me to remember that I have been called to dance the sacred dance of life. I was created to smile, to love, to be lifted up, to lift others up. O Sacred One, untangle my feet from all that ensnares, free my soul that we might dance, and that our dancing might be contagious." So, joy as an element of religious calling. I haven't always been sure of that. Some years ago, when I was serving our congregation in Lawrence, we always lit our chalice, saying in unison, "We light this chalice for love, hope, and peace." And one day, my head worship associate, a seminarian who was later to become an intern here, the now Reverend Rebecca Gant, asked me, "Don't you think we should add joy? Wouldn't it be even better to say, we light this chalice for love, hope, peace, and joy?" I don't know, I said. I'll think about it. I don't know, maybe joy just sounded more fleeting, something to enjoy when it happened, maybe even to facilitate, but not so profound as to be equivalent to love, hope, and peace. We never did add the word joy. On deeper reflection, I think joy is underrated. Does joy seem irrelevant or inappropriate in moments that require grief and outrage and compassion? Could joy be an escape that numbs our humanity? And I can't speak about joy in the sense of religious calling without one huge disclaimer. I grew up with a religion, part of the New Thought movement, that taught that how we think, our choice to accept as reality all the negative things in life, is what brings those things to us, into our lives. So I'll paraphrase. We make a better life and a better world if we choose to always be positive. The downside being, if you're depressed or oppressed, that's on you. This essentially denies the reality of systems of oppression or harmful life circumstances beyond our control or clinical depression. But joy isn't something we have to do. It's not an obligation to exude happiness. And I, for one, proudly claim my right to be grumpy or sad or angry, in which case nobody better tell me to smile. This joy that we're talking about is one of the threads that weaves through our lives. It's alongside grief and fear and love. We underrate joy at our spiritual peril. Professor Ross Gay at Indiana University, poet and author of the book Inciting Joy, writes that this idea that joy is somehow a luxury or a privilege really bothers him. He understands it as one of the common experiences that connects us, that we all have a capacity for joy despite the fact that we're all going to die and that things are going wrong all the time. This capacity for joy is something that joins us together. I recently heard a sermon from 2017 by a colleague recognizing how hard it is to focus on joy at a time when the world seems to be falling apart. Remember 2017, just 7 years ago? She recited examples of horrendous events of that year. A huge jump in hate crimes, a disastrous hurricane season, the deadliest year for mass shootings in 10 years, high-profile neo-Nazi gatherings, relentless Trump tweets, a significant increase in deaths by suicide, the threat of war with North Korea, endless accounts of sexual assault and harassment, terrorist attacks, Russian election collusion, more American political division than any time since the Civil War. 2017. From my perch here at the beginning of 2024, I look back and think, oh, honey. I'll spare us all an updated list. But let's just say joy is increasingly hard to find. And maybe we have some leftover puritanical sense that as long as there's such suffering in the world, none of us should be having any fun or too visibly enjoying life. But if we're called to be more fully human, a better perspective might be to be ready for joy, to call on joy, to express joy as we can, in order to celebrate those connections among people to increase the overall joy in the world. If this is what we want our world to look like. In the words of poet and activist Audre Lorde, the sharing of joy, whether physical, emotional, psychic, or intellectual, forms a bridge between the sharers, which can be the basis for understanding much of what is not shared between them, and lessens the thread of their difference. And while I could go on for a long time about the abstract nature of joy, the essential importance of joy, joy as an element of spirituality, that just doesn't sound very joyful. So to celebrate joy, I'd actually like to bring you a little joy. So I want to tell you about a time when I was a very new UU, a few years after my husband Chris and I had joined All Souls. Now that had been my idea, but I was such an introvert. I was still feeling unconnected, which was really on me because I felt more comfortable staying in my shell and, just observing. But then something happened, something that brought me a little spark of joy. That became the beginning of real connection here. And a few of you might have been here a long time, who were here a long time, and I know some of you have been, might remember this story. It was years, maybe decades, that people kept bringing it up, laughing with me, not at me, I think. So Chris and I both had corporate jobs that kept us intensely busy. We came to church most Sundays, but really weren't engaged. And then we discovered dinners for 8. It seemed like an easy, low-stress opportunity to get to know people. And dinners for 8 offered one additional benefit. When it came our time to host, it would force us to clean the house. That was pretty much the method of housekeeping in our overly busy lives. Periodically invite guests over, frantically clean the house. And so it was, I found myself one evening, days before hosting our first dinner for 8, home from work, exhausted, pondering the appalling state of the house, Chris out of town. That's when it happened. The marketing call that changed my life. On the other end of the line is an enthusiastic voice from Complete Carpet Cleaners. They're having a special. A crew will come to my house and clean all the carpets upstairs and down for only $49.99. But wait, there's more. Yes, they can come this week. Yes, they can come in the evening. As I gaze at the dingy, originally light blue carpeting, what were we thinking? It hits me. This Complete Carpet Cleaners deal is more than just a special. It is our salvation. The crew shows up 2 nights later. 3 men and 2 women drag a huge steam hose into the house and get to work. As I sit at the kitchen table observing, their extremely friendly supervisor keeps coming up with helpful suggestions. Would you like us to add a product to the steam to get rid of the pet smell? Wow, yes, that would be great. How about these rugs? Shall we run the steamer over them too? Of course, there's just a few small ones. Go right ahead. How about adding this super duper product that repels stains, keeps the carpet clean longer? Great idea, go for it. I don't bother to ask how much extra. Because you know, if cleaning the carpet throughout the entire house only costs $49.99, how much more can a few additional trivial items cost? An hour later, they're done. And Mr. Super Salesman presents me with a bill for, wait for it, $800. Like it's nothing. I nearly go into shock. I refuse. He's indignant, like I'm the scam artist. In fact, he refuses to leave the house until I give him a check for $800. Furious, I give him the check and tell him, I'll just stop payment on it, now get out. He calls his manager, who orders him not to leave until I promise not to stop payment on the check. Okay, I promise, now get the hell out of my house. First thing the next morning, I stop payment. I wasn't a minister yet, so that was okay. Yeah. Eventually, I end up negotiating a much lesser amount, but still exorbitant. When I file a complaint, the Better Business Bureau informs me I'm not the only victim. And yet, there is a tiny bit of salvation to be found. It's a great story for our new friends at Dinner for 8. They roar with sympathetic laughter pretty much all evening. And I notice they're very, very careful not to spill anything on the carpet. Thank you. For years afterwards, our story of being completely cleaned by complete carpet cleaners makes the rounds at All Souls. Jim Mitchell of blessed memory never lets us hear the end of it. And with that bit of shared joy, we are finally connected. Beyond bringing people together to sustain a religious community, joy's role in our prophetic mission is essential. Joy doesn't have to be escapist. Joy can be resistance to cruelty, to hate, to oppression. As expressed in the mock Latin phrase in Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, nolite te bastardes carboradorum, don't let the bastards grind you down. Or in the words of political revolutionary Emma Goldman, if I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. Because the struggle for justice can be grim. You know, with the whack-a-mole evils we're forced to observe and ponder and organize against, it's joy that helps sustain us against the burnout. It's joy that reminds us of the point to bring more capacity for joy to everyone, not to dismiss our own capacity in the name of deadly earnestness. Modern-day prophets seemed to know this. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. loved Star Trek. He once watched the World Series with theologian Howard Thurman, who played the clarinet, and is said to have had an extensive collection of penguin figurines. And our own Unitarian 20th century theologian James Luther Adams, who urged liberal religious people to confront and speak out against injustice after his ministry in the beginnings of Nazi Germany, loved kung fu movies and soap operas. And just as there are different forms of injustice, joy as resistance takes different forms. UU seminarian and queer activist Christy Cardinal tells about a time they were 2,500 miles from home at General Assembly when their partner sent them a photo of their front yard vandals had ripped the pride flag down. As tears stung their eyes and fear filled their body, they shared that story on social media, and right away, a straight friend offered to go replace the flag, and did, a bigger and brighter flag. When Christy came home and touched the remnant of that original flag, though, not only did the tears come back, but also hot rage. And this time they shared about the emotional toll, the violence. At a friend's suggestion, they made plans to fill the yard and cover the entire house in pride flags, and ended up with a stack of packages sent by social media friends containing all different sorts of pride flags. But the day of the project, Christy came down with COVID, so it would have to wait. But no, their community showed up again and put the flags up for them. And Christy says, "Never have I felt it more true that an army of lovers cannot lose than when I saw this in my front yard. Tears of joy filled my eyes as I saw the brightly colored compassion and love of community wave in the grass. Queer joy is resistance." UU minister Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson, who is Black, writes about the expectation Unitarian Universalists often have that being open to more charismatic modes of Black worship will bring more lively singing, clapping, energy. But she says that's only a narrow sliver of the complexity and richness of Black spirituality and Black worship. For her, the more powerful modes are the rock, the sway, the moan, the hum, as done in community. "I marvel," she says, "that in the midst of sadness and sorrow, in the midst of feeling the effects of generations of trauma, we can still find joy in each other. It is the joy we created through our collective healing, our laying down of burdens, to be picked up and shared by our people, our community. This Black joy is joy created through our being together. This Black joy reminds me that I'm not alone, that trouble don't last always, that I am held and carried forward by a power beyond what I can comprehend." And Reverend Johnson wants to offer this kind of joy to Unitarian Universalism, the suggestion that joy is ours. She reminds us, we are the people who commit to justice, equity, and compassion. We are the people who aspire to world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We are the people who affirm our interdependence with each other and the universe itself. I want to challenge Unitarian Universalism and Unitarian Universalists to claim joy. Unitarian Universalist joy will require a different way of imagining selves and a different way of being with each other. But joy can't mean being without sorrow, as if there were humans able to live without heartbreak. Instead of thinking about joy as relief from that heartbreak, maybe joy is what happens from our coming together to share those sorrows. To return to the words of Professor Ross Gay, joy is an ember for wild and unpredictable and transgressive solidarity. And that solidarity might incite further joy. That joy might draw us together. I think of joy, which gets us to love, as being a practice of survival. And so, one final story for you. As an unexpected joy I experienced here, not of laughter this time, but coming out of our shared sorrow. It was February 1991. I had only been a member for 1 year. The church was deeply involved in protesting the developing Gulf War, the U.S. invasion of Iraq. On the Sunday after the start of the inevitable ground war was announced, this sanctuary was overflowing, standing room only. Our minister, the Reverend Judith Walker Riggs, was scheduled to be out of the pulpit that day, but she showed up anyway, saying that every minister should be in their own pulpit on this horrific day. And I remember this room being filled with rage and sorrow. I was sitting in a middle row, shoulder to shoulder with people I'd never actually met. And the only thing else that I remember from that day was that at some point during the music or during the sermon, I don't know, people started quietly sobbing. And then spontaneously, in this packed sanctuary, everyone began holding hands, just sitting quietly together, listening, mourning, tearfully holding hands. I don't remember the music or the sermon, but this I remember. And that buried within that sorrowful togetherness, I was surprised by the spirit of profound joy. Finally, I'd found my people. Somehow, when we come together, the Spirit moves us in unforeseeable ways, and we're called to respond. So let's rise and embody your spirit and sing about that now together.
You got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Oh yeah, you got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you got to sing. Oh yeah, you got to sing when the Spirit says sing. You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you got to dance. Oh yeah, you got to dance when the Spirit says dance. You got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. When the Spirit says laugh, you've got to laugh. Oh yeah, you got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You got to shout when the Spirit says shout. You got to shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you've got to shout. Oh yeah, you've got to shout when the Spirit says shout. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Oh yeah, you got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Oh yeah, you got to do when the Spirit says do.
I offer you these closing words by Heather Ryan Starr. May whatever gatherings or activities we engage in this Sunday afternoon help restore us, our connections to one another, our sense of hope, beauty and fun in this world? Our deep knowing that we have to take care of ourselves and each other with love and joy if we are to soulfully survive the world's mayhem. Go in peace and joy.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me.